today we are looking at the movie for Artemis Fowl. Have the box set here. It goes in this hole here. I've pulled it down so we can have a little look at its shiny exterior. Yeah, cool. So, yeah, this will be my first time actually watching this, and while I won't be live reacting to it, because for a 2 hour long movie, or even if it's an hour and a half, that's still a really long thing to be live reviewing it, and then at the end of it, trying to do a review of the film as well, like I would normally do for films. We will get my first thoughts during my review at the end though. And I'll discuss the review part when we get to the review part. But for the moment, I've read the blurbs of this, I've seen one review, and we're about to turn on our PlayStation, because that's how we watch Disney Plus, and read the synopsis on there. So, while this loads, there we go, I will talk about the blurbs here. So, predictions for this film. I only really have one. I have two things that I think could happen, considering it's Disney that's made this. We're talking about people that own Star Wars, Marvel, and Pixar, all franchises that are very heavily rooted in having Easter eggs, not to mention that the Disney princess films in particular reference other Disney princess films. So we're likely to have Easter eggs in this film. So the only two Easter eggs I'm really kind of expecting, considering this is like a first one, and also considering that I haven't really read the books. I read the first one so long ago that I can't remember. Look at my bookshelf. Okay, let's move this so you can have a proper look. Yeah, there's a third row, and there's a fourth one under that, and they're all just as full as each other. And it's not even all my books. But yeah, so long ago that I don't remember what actually happened in it, is what I'm getting at. So I don't really know if there's gonna be like what bits are missing from the book, etc. I am gonna read the book, probably discuss it during my favourites or whatever. That might be a cool little sort of side bit during that. And that's assuming I can get through the book just here in front of us, which is Ballad of Snowbirds and Songbirds and Snakes. I said snow because it's about President Snow. But yeah, so the only two things I'm really expecting, based on just the blurbs here, is potentially a Ewan Colfer cameo in a scene, kind of the same way as like Stanley, or even like Stephenie Meyer having a cameo during the Twilight movie in one of the diner scenes. So that's one thing. And the second thing is one of the villains is probably, whether they're the main one or not, I don't know, but we're probably going to get a reference to Opal Boy being one of the enemies in the background, sort of thing. And I only say that because of these books, The Opal Deception, which is this one, and The Last Guardian, which is this one, both have Opal Boy as the main villain. And in Opal Deception, the blurb states that she's back, meaning she was there beforehand. My guess, based on the blurbs of Arctic Incident and Eternity Code, is that she was in the first one. She, he, it, whatever pronoun Opal Boy prefers. So yeah, they're the only two things I'm really expecting from this. So it's PlayStation is turned on, TV is not. That generally helps. My TV time to load itself. It's me. Pretty blue. My background is an Assassin's Creed Odyssey, in case you recognize the music. That is my theme. So, when I open up my TV and video, TV and video? I believe that's what it's called. We have all the little apps at the top. Disney Plus is the first one, and then Netflix, then Stan, Foxtel Prime Video, PlayStation Store, and YouTube. And the ones I don't really use from that are Foxtel, because that's expensive, and the PlayStation Store, because I can just get to that from the main menu. In my featured, Artemis Fowl is actually the first one. He's just chilling there. So we're gonna go ahead, skip past having a search for him on Disney Plus itself, and we're just gonna press on the featured, because that should take us straight to him. And plus, there we go. And then we gotta load. We're doing these ones. I'm pretty sure I'm in time now. Oh, there we go, loading up, cool. Alright. It is a PG film, obviously, being that it's a Disney film. It's not gonna reach too hard into the M ratings in Australia. So PG, released this year, released 2 days ago, so obviously this year. It's an hour and 36 minutes long. So obviously keeping that kids movie a vibe about it, being sort of shorter in length to go with kids and their pretty notoriously short attention spans when it comes to like films and stuff, to be completely honest. It is a science fiction, fantasy, crime, action, adventure film, which I'm really hoping that crime means that the review I read is not true about the fact that they've removed the fact he's a criminal mastermind from it. So here's hoping. The synopsis here, before I switch this off and go and watch this by myself, says Disney's Artemis Fowl, based on the beloved book by Ewan Colfer, is a fantastical spellbinding adventure that follows the journey of 12-year-old genius Artemis Fowl, a descendant of a long line of criminal masterminds, as he seeks to find his father. Cool. Interesting. Cool stuff. I like that there's an acorn above the I in his name. I'm pretty sure that's a reference to Holly Short, the fairy in this film. Now, also on that article that I read, it said that they had removed the fact that he's a criminal mastermind. It does say that he's a descendant of a long line of criminal masterminds. That does not necessarily mean he is one. I am descended from a convict. I am not. I'm not, you know, an outlaw. So, you know, we'll see how this goes. But yeah, until my review, where I'll probably be standing over there, so you can see the poster that's off, out of shot just here, where I would normally do my my film reviews. Until then, I'm gonna go watch this film and write some notes down, and yeah, we'll see how we go. Alright, so it's the next morning, and I thought I'd come outside and do this bit. Alright, so the critic and audience scores from Rotten Tomatoes, Metacritic and IMDb. We've got Rotten Tomatoes gave us 10 for critics and 21 for audience. Metacritic both gave us 31.
and IMDb gave us 39%. So when we add the 5 scores up and to get the average, we end up with an average total of 26.4%. Alright. Now, if you haven't seen one of my movie reviews before, I take the film and I divide it up into 10 parts, give them all a score out of 10. This gives me my total. Those being script, the casting, the acting and directing, the cinematography and the editing, set design and location, soundtrack, special and visual effects, the costuming and makeup, in this case, accuracy to the source material, and the marketing, which will be the teaser trailer and the final trailer. Right. I'm going to actually start for this one with casting, because the script goes with pretty much hand in hand with its accuracy, and this way I'm able to keep pretty much everything else in order. So the casting gets 7. The Josh Gad, who plays Multidiggums, has also worked with Disney on a number of other occasions, most notably as Fowl in the live-action Beauty and the Beast, and he is the voice of Olaf from the Frozen films. Nonso Anozie, who plays Dumbledore Butler, played Sergeant Dapp in Ender's Game, and Zaro, one of the merchants of Karth in Game of Thrones. Colin Farrell, who plays Artemis Fowl Sr., a criminal, also played Bullseye in the Daredevil film that everyone would rather forget. Personally, I think Colin Farrell was like the high point of that film, and Michael Clark Duncan as Kingpin was also pretty cool. Maybe I'll do a review of that film at some point. And Judi Dench as Commander Root was also in 007 as M. Reason I bring up the roles that they played is because between those 4 actors, we've got a large history with Disney, a large history of book to film adaptations, and two actors that have played effectively the exact same character in other franchises, meaning that we'd already really seen what these guys were offering us, and most of those other ones have done fairly well. Frozen is a phenomenon. Game of Thrones was one. If it weren't for that Daredevil movie, we wouldn't have got the Daredevil we really wanted on Netflix, because Marvel learnt their lesson about how to treat certain characters. And the 007 films, Judi Dench was in the Daniel Craig ones, which have been immensely successful. Joshua Maguire, the guy who plays Cudgeon, also played Ollie from the British TV show Misfits. And if you don't remember who Ollie is and you have seen Misfits, he's the dude that could teleport to begin with, who ends up having his heart transplanted after he gets killed by the video game guy. But so it was really cool to see him in pretty much a different role. And then pretty much all of the others are new actors or up-and-comers. So it's good to get some already established talent like those guys next to some up-and-comers, some fresh faces. Does help make the film feel a bit more fresh. Acting and directing, we get a 7. It was directed by Kenneth Branagh, who, on his Disney side of things, directed the first Thor film and the live-action Cinderella remake, which I think is pretty cool. He also did Murder on the Orient Express, which he directed, produced, and was like the lead role in. Judi Dench is also in that film, and the reason I bring up the fact that he's already worked with Dench is that Ewan Colfer, the guy who wrote the books, was actually impressed with how Branagh was directing it and with Dench's performance as Commander Root. So if those two things were good enough for the author of the book, the only one who really has any say in it being a good or a bad film, in my opinion, then it can't be too much of a bad thing. The other thing that I liked about the direction and the acting was the fight scene choreography. I thought that was really cool. But that goes hand in hand with the cinematography of those scenes and how they were edited. And again, the troll capture scene and the fight scene at Fowl Manor were high points for me. So acting and directing got a 7, and cinematography and editing got a 7. Set design and location was going to have the same score, but it gets an 8 because of the fact that they had to custom build a Fowl Manor set, which included the boathouse, the thing going up the dunes, the actual manor itself, and that allowed them to custom build the manor to help make filming those scenes easier. They put some forethought into it, so they were able to do that and still make the house look like it was an actual house you would be able to find. I thought that was really cool. And principal photography was in the UK. Most of the actors and the setting of this film, the characters, they're all Irish. I think Judi Dench is English. I think Colin Farrell might be English. I think Josh Gad, out of the already established talent, I think Josh Gad was the only American. If we put it like that. Soundtrack is our weak point. We get a 4 for this. The only memorable song being I Wanna Know What Love Is, 1984, Foreigner. And mainly only because it's mentioned. If it had just sort of been on the background and you had to look for it, it wouldn't even be brought up here. Special and visual effects, we gave an 8 to. When you consider that they have to CG everything to do with Haven City, or to do with any of the most of the fairy sequences is going to have some level of CG, especially the time stop ones. Then they actually did a pretty good job on this. I'm going to skip ahead to marketing so that we can really just dive into the script, because we need to talk about it. So marketing gets a 7 from both trailers, and I did watch them before writing this score down, but from both trailers, Hong Chau, who voiced Opal Boy in an uncredited role, and all of the Ho Chi Minh sequence that was depicted in both trailers was deleted. Had they been left in, this probably would have been an 8, because they do build up quite a good bit of hype for what the film is. And I went into this with people saying it's horrible. I mean, our highest critical score is 39%. So I went into this not having high expectations, and I think just go into this film feeling like it's gonna be one of those ones where you just sort of sit down and just enjoy a film for a film, and you'll be fine. but script and accuracy to source material is actually pretty bloody good. I'm going to try and be as concise with this as I can, but I've got the synopsis in front of me here for the book, and we're gonna mainly just point out the bits that were taken out. Now, I've already mentioned that the Ho Chi Minh sequence was deleted. It's a deleted scene, so it exists, and we know that from the trailers. So when that bit comes up, we know that that was going to be in there. Alright, so it says here, Artemis Fowl II is a 12-year-old prodigy who has dedicated his life to criminal activities. He leads the Fowl criminal empire, which has existed in his family for generations. After significant research, Artemis believes he's confirmed the existence of fairies. Now, look. When his father in the film is also named Artemis Fowl, it's hard to know whether Artemis is just sort of like a family name that continues to be passed down each generation, meaning that theoretically in the film Artemis Fowl could be the second, could be the father. We know that our main character is the 12-year-old, but if we're going to go with him being the 12-year-old, then yeah, the criminal activities and the leading the empire is not what he does, it's what his father does. The significant research being his father teaching him and spending pretty much every moment he can talking to his son about fairies. What's interesting to note as well is that the only fairies that they actually talk about are the Irish mythology creatures. It then continues to say he identifies an alcoholic sprite posing as a healer in Ho Chi Minh and travels there with his bodyguard butler to obtain from her the Book of the People, the very holy book that's written in Gnomish. Now, theoretically, considering that Hong Chao is the healer that this alcoholic sprite would be posing as in the film, and we know that because we can see her face in the trailer, theoretically that scene would have been just after Opal has called them. They've traced the call to Vietnam, to Ho Chi Minh, and they've gone there trying to get his father back. Meanwhile, Captain Holly Short, an elf in the Lower Elements Police, is tracking a rogue troll that's managed to reach the surface of the Earth from Haven City, thousands of feet underground. Assisted by the technically minded Centaur and Leprechaun Commander Julius Rude, she incapacitates the troll. That all happens. So that's close. We've had some changes in that first bit, but that second bit, all completely correct. Artemis decodes the book using translating software, and in this case, the book could just be the book Holly had on her once they captured her. So this has just been moved down in sequence. But this next bit has been changed for the film, and that's mainly to make Artemis Fowl the second and Holly feel like the same character effectively, just from their respective worlds. So it says here, so he decodes the book using translating software and learns the specifics of a ritual used to replenish magic. Take an acorn from an ancient oak tree near a bend in a river under the full moon and plant it elsewhere. Artemis and Butler track down 129 possible locations for the ritual and start a stakeout. They discover Holly performing the ritual, and Butler tranquilizes her with a hypodermic dart gun. Basically, that whole bit's just leading up to the fact that they do the stakeout, they do capture Holly, but the ritual's been changed to her trying to find evidence to clear her father's name, similar to how Artemis is on the search for the Aculos to try and get his father back, so he can help clear his father's name. After being led onto Fowl's ship, and this bit has all been taken off by Holly's tracker, Artemis tells Commander Root his name so they can find him, and then blows the ship up. In this case, they just use Holly's tracker and her last known location. From there, they're able to figure out that it's Fowl Manor that she's been kept at, because Fowl Manor is near the Hill of Tara, where she was last seen. An LEP retrieval team is sent to scout Fowl Manor using their shielding ability, which allows them to vibrate faster than the human I can follow. Now look, the shielding ability would have been cool to see in the film, wasn't used, they just heavily relied on the time freeze. But that's okay, because it is the time freeze that they use at the end. So, not having the shielding ability, I think more or less just helped with pacing, because this is a kids' film. An hour and a half is more than enough for kids. Got to think of the target demographic here too when you're thinking about pacing as well. The shielding ability has a whole sequence where Artemis installs a high frames per second camera, allowing him to detect the fairies. After Butler incapacitates the intruders, Root decides to lay siege to Fowl Manor using a time stop and enter negotiations. Artemis states his ransom demand, 1 ton of 24 karat gold. Obviously in this, he wants the Aculos, which turns out to be made of gold. So did he ask for the exact same thing? Kind of. Artemis also reveals his knowledge of the time stop and claims he can escape it. An analysis by LEP behaviour experts determines that Artemis is telling the truth. Now look, it doesn't say here how he's able to walk around during the time stop when literally every other human is frozen by the time stop. So, yeah, maybe there's some sort of technology in like the walls or something that, or like in his suit that Artemis Senior had designed. We do find out by the end that he knew a fairy, and it was that particular fairy that had given him the Aculos to keep away from Opal Boy. So, yeah. Cool. So the attempts to gain entry to the manor continue as the LEP recruit infamous criminal, the kleptomaniac dwarf Mulch Diggums, to break in. Fairies normally cannot enter human dwellings without permission, but Mulch has forfeited that magic, preventing him from entering dwellings, causing him to be safe when burglarizing. You could simplify that. I mean, obviously for the book that makes for an interesting character, like he specifically is the only one, whereas in this it could just be that Mulch Diggums was like the dwarf that they knew the most because of his size, and it is mentioned in the film. Root does say that she needs him for his size, so it's specifically him for his size rather than him being forfeited magic. But in the film, I took it to be that only fairies and not any other magical creature needs permission, because the troll just gets like thrown in there and it's, so it seems to me that it's only fairies can't enter without permission, kind of like how only vampires can do the same thing. Now, where were we? Alright, so Mulch tunnels underground to reach their house, while Foley feeds a loop to the surveillance system. The surveillance system wasn't used, so this isn't needed. allowing Mulch to freely explore. Mulch accidentally locates a safe copy containing Artemis's copy of the book, revealing to the fairies the source of Artemis's knowledge, which he had led them to believe he had acquired from a truth serum administered to Holly. Now, in this case, Mulch is allowed to freely explore because Artemis wants him to, because dwarves sniff out treasure. He does accidentally locate a safe, but it doesn't contain Artemis's book. It contains the Aculos itself. So still sort of the big MacGuffin is what it contains. So it's still fairly close. The Fairy Council, which is not used in this, they are called executors, deciding that nothing is working, promotes Lieutenant Briar Cudgeon to acting commander, temporarily usurping Julius Root. Meanwhile, Holly cracks through the concrete of her cell, finding fresh dirt, and completes the ritual with a smuggled acorn. Having regained her magic, she escapes into the main house. Holly doesn't need to do that because Artemis comes and makes a deal with her as part of his big master plan. I do like the bit where they're talking about whether or not Artemis can trust Holly, and she just punches him in the face, and she's like, "Now you can trust me." I do like that bit. Cool. Cudgeon decides to release the troll that Holly captured earlier into the mansion to force Artemis to allow fairies to enter and subdue the troll. However, Butler, aided by Holly's healing powers, defeats the troll, and the council subsequently strips Cudgeon of his post. Artemis is finally granted the ransom. In this case, it's not because of what it's got written here for the book. It's because Holly uses the Aculos to teleport his father into the basement of Fowl Manor. But in the book, Artemis asks Holly for a wish to cure his mother of insanity. She'd been living in her bedroom, driven mad by the loss of her husband. Which, would have been kind of cool, I think, to have seen. There was, I think, at least one scene with Artemis's mother in it. So we almost had this bit, I think. But introducing a character that late in the film would have, I mean, that scene would have been deleted for the same reason that the Tony Stark in the Soul World scene was deleted from Endgame, because we wouldn't have connected with an older Morgan Stark. The LEP decides to send in a Blue Rinse, a biological bomb that kills all organic life, which obviously for Disney is too dark for their family-friendly image. Scrap that entirely. And also the fact that they escaped the time stop by drugging themselves with sleeping pills is just kind of encouraging drug use, which they wouldn't have done either. So scrap that as well. Still an interesting concept in the book though. Having survived until the end of the time stop, the LEP is bound by their law, and leaves the remaining gold and departs. At the end, Butler demands an explanation as to how Artemis came up with the idea of using sleeping pills. He explained that he got it from fairy tales, in which human characters never wake up at inopportune moments for the fairies, and had guessed that time stops were the reason. Concluding that time stop forces a being to stay in whichever state of consciousness they were in when the time stop is started, he used sleeping pills to break out of the time stop. Artemis finds his mother has fully recovered from her insanity thanks to Holly's magic. So we still get the happy ending that Disney would have liked, but we get to avoid basically depictions of severe mental illness, biological warfare, and drug use, which are obviously at this point big no-nos because the film's been a little bit violent. So yeah, so and having Ewan Cole for as a consultant on the script got 6, and accuracy and originality got 7, bringing our total, once we add all of our scores up, to a 68%, which is 2.5 times the average score that we were looking at. Just a little bit over, I think. But yeah, 68% for Artemis Fowl. It's actually not a bad film. It's a pretty good film. I think 68's an acceptable score for it. I probably wouldn't go any higher. And I was trying to, in some of these, I was trying to be a little bit generous. Like if I found it a cool bit of trivia, I was like, okay, that alone is worth another point, sort of thing. So yeah, 68's probably like the top end of where I'd go for this film. But I still wouldn't rate it as low as 39. So yeah, if you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. Don't forget to hit the subscribe button if you want to see more videos from me, and the notification bell for being notified when I upload new ones. And until next time, guys, keep your heads screwed on.